Hello, Mr. Simonini here. This video is about graphing two unique situations that occur when you're graphing in factored form. These two problems that I'm going to do are going to be like the problems that you're going to have to do on the homework. Anyways, the first problem is how do you graph whenever there is one x-intercept? And then the second one is what happens when 0, 0 is one of your x-intercepts? What happens in that situation? And if 0, 0 is an x-intercept, understand that the y-intercept will also be 0, 0 as well. But anyways, let's look at number one. So number one, here's an example of something that's going to have one x-intercept. Now, in order for you to kind of be, hopefully make sense with what we're doing so far, you might want to write this out, meaning expand x minus 5 out just like I did here. Now, I'm not changing it. Don't start foiling and everything. I just want you just to see this. Understand that these are the same thing. So if you're trying to find the x-intercept, in this case, there's just one x-intercept. The x-intercept in this case is going to be x equals 5, or in other words, 5 comma 0. Now, in order to find the x of the vertex, now if you want to use the formula, wait, what's in the middle of, well, that really doesn't make sense, but like if you're trying to think about it that way. But what you do is just think about it this way. You have two 5s here that pop up in two parentheses. So what you can do, if you were trying to find the x of the vertex, you just do 5 plus 5, which is 10. 10 divided by 2, which is going to be 5. Your x of the vertex is the same thing as your x-intercept whenever there is one x-intercept. And that's kind of how you deal with that. So if that's my x of the vertex, in order to find the y of the vertex, remember you have to plug in this answer into the equation. So you plug it in. Again, you can use decimals.com if you want to, but what's 5 minus 5? Well, 5 minus 5 is 0. 0 squared is 0, so this is just going to be 0, which should make sense because, again, this right here is actually your vertex. So your vertex is the same thing as the x-intercept in this case. So my vertex, just to be clear, is the same thing as my x-intercept and will only occur whenever there is one x-intercept. So my vertex is the same thing as the x-intercept. So if you look here, I still put it in the middle. Do two numbers before 5, which is going to be 4 and 3, and two numbers after 5 would be 6 and 7. Now, in order to find these numbers, you can plug it into the equation if you want to, or go to decimals.com. I already have it plugged in, so again, you go to decimals.com, graph it. Now, in order to get the table, again, just to be clear, you hit that gear that I have highlighted, then you hit the table button, and it should pop up. So again, what was my vertex? Well, it was 5, and I want two numbers before and two numbers after to get a good idea of the picture of the graph. So if you look here, this is the picture of the graph that I have. Again, you can kind of click. Just to be clear too, you can zoom in and out if you needed to. As you can see, yes, it goes on forever and ever. But anyways, these are the points that I want. So -1 and -4. So I'll put this in different color. So I got -1 and -4. And I got -1 and -4. So I'm going to go ahead and plot these points. Remember, again, your x-intercept in this case was the same thing as a vertex, which was 5, 0. And then I have 4, -1, 6, -1, and then 3, -4, and then 7, -4, right? Yep, good. And then you're going to go ahead and draw your parabola, which is going to look something like this. Now, I know on the homework, just remember, there's also another thing. If you're asked, so remember, let's say you're trying to find the y-intercept. In this case, it looks like there's none. There's always a y-intercept. There's always a y-intercept. Is whenever x is 0. So on the homework, if you're asked about the y-intercept, understand all you need to do is just plug in 0 in for x. So in this case, it'd be -0 minus 5 squared. Because again, I'm plugging 0 in for x. This is what I'm doing, right? I'm just plugging in 0 in for x. All right, and then you can go ahead and do that calculation. In this case, be -5 squared, which is going to be, again, you can plug it in your calculator, but it'd be -25. So my y-intercept, okay, if you're asked about the y-intercept, will be 0, -25. Now, there's multiple ways to find the y-intercept too if you're using decimals.com. You can zoom out and just go to see where it crosses the y-axis and you can click on it and it shows you that. Also understand that you can plug it in your table and your table will show you 0, -25 as well. Okay, so again, you can plug in any number for x and it'll give you a y. So whatever I'm asking you, you can always just use the table or just look at the graph if you needed to in decimals.com. Anyways, if you're asked about the y-intercept in the homework, remember that's what you should do. Again, it's consistent with my picture too. All right, my second example is whenever x equals 0. Remember, this is a rule. Whenever x is on the outside of the parenthesis, right, then x equals 0 is one of the solutions. So if you look here, one of my x-intercepts is 0, 0 because the x is on the outside. My other one is the opposite of that guy, which would be -4 is 0. So just remember, whenever there's an x outside, 0, 0 is one of your x-intercepts, or 0 is one of your solutions. So in this case, it would be 0 plus -4. So it would be -4 divided by 2, which is going to be -2. So that's my x of the vertex. Again, you plug in, again, you might need to put extra set of parentheses here when you plug in the x right there. So it'd be -2, and then I forgot to put +4 there. They should be the same color to be consistent. There you go. All right, and then again, you can use decimals.com to help you plug that in if you need to. But that's going to be, well, this is, I'm going to just do it by hand. It'd be -4 times 2, which is going to be -8. So the y of the vertex is going to be -2, -8. So come down here now. Again, put that in the middle of your table. Two numbers before -2 would be -3, -4. Two numbers after -2 would be -1 and 0. Go here to my table. Again, I'm going to go to my other graph. I already have a graph here. Make sure I'm good. That was my vertex. Good. Get my table. So I got -2 in the middle. I got -3 here, -4, and then -1, and then 0. So again, those are my points. So -6 and 0. -6 and 0. And then I'm going to go ahead and plot the points. So -2, -8, which is right here. -1, -6 is right here. -3, -6 right there. 0, 0 is way up here, and then -4, 0 is right there. And then you go ahead and, again, try your best to draw that in. Just to be clear, in this case, my y-intercept, okay, my y-intercept, again, remember, is whenever x is 0. So again, you can plug in 0 into your equation. So it'd be 0 equals 2. So y equals 2 times 0, 0 plus 4, which is just going to give you 0. So you can plug it in, or sometimes it might pop up in your table like it did here. So just to be clear, the y-intercept in this case will be 0, 0. So again, y-intercept is something that historically students in the past have gotten wrong because they forget that you just plug 0 in. So again, if you're asked about that in the homework, that's what you need to do. Sometimes it may not show up on your graph like it did here. It didn't show up, but it still exists. So just to be clear, just because it doesn't show up on the graph when you put it on your notability, doesn't mean it does not exist. Remember, these arrows mean it goes down forever and ever. So eventually it's going to hit, -25 in this case if you're going to keep going. And as you can see, the first example is a good one because, again, if you scroll down, it does show you that there is actually a y-intercept. Anyways, the two homework problems are very similar to these two questions I did on this video. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.